Good morning and welcome to WorksheetCloud. My name is Mrs. Fauger and I'm here to keep you on top of your English work. If you were here yesterday, I'm so glad you've joined again today. If this is your first time, a warm welcome. We're going to learn a lot in this lesson, so let's jump right in. Our lesson overview for today, we're going to look at visual literacy. What is it? And how we can improve our visual literacy. And then we're going to look at advertising techniques and how to identify them in pictures. So two little aspects of visual literacy. There's obviously a lot more, but we're just going to focus on those two today. So what do we mean by visual literacy? So let's take those two words apart. So what does visual mean and what does literacy mean? So literacy has to do with the ability to read and write, and visual has to do with what you see. And so if we put them together, we're talking about the ability to read, write about, and interpret what you see with your eyes. You must be able to process information, not just in a text or a passage, but in the things that you see in picture form. And we are exposed to visual texts in so many ways. Billboards, TV adverts, photographs, digital stories, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, video games, signs that you see as you travel on the roads. There's so many more that you could have added to this list. But it is vital for us to develop our critical thinking, and a tool to use that is your visual literacy. And so there's three basic steps that you can follow when looking at a visual image or at a video. And number one is just look and tell me what you see. So literally write down what you see. The second thing is, how does it make you feel? So what kind of emotions does it evoke when you look at it? And then what is the image? What do you think the image is trying to tell us as human beings? Obviously, if we go into a little bit more detail, there's things to look for, like what is the subject? Are colors or symbols used in a special way? Is there any referencing to something you know, whether it's a historical reference or even something from your childhood? What people, objects, or activities can you see in the picture? Are there any clues to when it was taken? So maybe a date or a time, what was happening at that time in history? Are there any clues to where it was taken, so a landmark? Are there any clues to why it was taken and who took it? And then is it a posed photograph, like one of your selfies? Or is it just a natural scene? Was it a documentary photograph? Did somebody just take it in passing? So those are some of the things to look for. So let's take a look at this photograph number one. So first of all, just those three basic things. What do you see? What does it make you feel? And what do you think they're trying to get you to understand from the picture? So you can pause the video at this stage and look at the picture and just tell me even those two things. What do you see? Just write those things down. And what do you feel looking at the photograph? Okay, so if we just look at the picture, what do we see? I hope you managed to write down the dates, 1886 and 1936. There's Drink Coca-Cola, 50th anniversary, and you could then go back to the dates and work that out. So 1936 minus 1886 is 50 years. We can see two ladies. One's holding the Coke up and drinking it, one's about to drink it, and the one sitting with it on her lap. And they both look quite happy. They are wearing completely different outfits. One is more covered and one is sort of in a bathing costume or a dancing outfit. So those are the things that you can see. What do you feel when you look at that picture? Well, for one thing, if you do enjoy Coke, you might think, wow, 50 years, that's amazing. Of course it's amazing. Of course they've been around for 50 years. If you don't like Coke, you might be thinking, I don't understand why they've been around for so long. But yes, amazing that it's been 50 years. The two different outfits, if we go back in history, the lady on the left is fully clothed, and that was almost those outfits that they used to wear to the beach. That was their costume. And obviously in 50 years, how things have changed, how fashion has changed. And I think what the image is possibly trying to tell us is that Coke is here to stay. It's lasted 50 years. It's lasted through changes in fashion, and it's still around. I hope you got some of those thoughts as well. Let's take a look at photograph number two. And again, I want you to pause the video. I want you to look at the picture of the little boy. Tell me what you see, all the visual details that you see. Tell me a little bit about what you're feeling when you look at that photograph, and then think about what do you think the image is trying to convey, or what message is it trying to give us. Okay, so great. I hope you wrote down, you see a little boy, you see the sea, all the way to the horizon. Nothing's on the sea, there's no boats or anything. You see the little boy lifting up the sea almost like a carpet, and underneath is a whole lot of rubbish and pollution. That's basically your visual details. Tell me what you feel. I hope maybe that you were either surprised or disgusted at the state of what is underneath what we can't really see when we just look at the surface. And I think that's the message that's being conveyed, is sometimes we just sweep things under the carpet. And so if it's under the carpet, we can't really see, so we don't think it's a problem. And pollution, we know around the world is a major problem. And so instead of burying things, we need to maybe lift that carpet up and see what really is happening and do something about it. Right, we're going to move on now to analyzing sort of your cartoon kind of pictures. So this is our first one, and it gives you clues on the right, 1, 2, and 3, some questions for you to think about. So before you answer those questions, I want you to look at the actual cartoon. So if we look over here, we've obviously got a couple sitting there. She sighs like that, and he, in response to her sigh, almost like he knows what she's thinking, says, yeah, me too. And then you've got Nelson Mandela, and it's got the Nelson Mandela era around his face. And then it's difficult to see here, but there is a newspaper article about Mandela, and it says there Mandela's last speech. So let's take a look at question number 1. Just write down a visual detail which indicates that the man and the woman sitting on the dock have a close relationship. So what tells you that they're close? Number 2, what does Nelson Mandela's face represent? And you need to give me 2 visual clues that you can see. So what do you think his face is meant to be in that picture? If we had to take his face away and put something back there, what is it meant to represent, and how do you know? And then which real life event does this image portray? So pause the video at this stage and then join me as soon as you've got some answers down. Okay. So number 1, write down a visual detail. So the man and the woman are obviously close, and you can see that from the visual detail of the 2 of them sitting with their arms around each other. You generally don't touch somebody or hug somebody if they're not somebody that you really like or that you're close to. And if you wanted another visual detail, if they asked for 2, you could say that, well, she's sighing and he almost knows what she's saying because he says, yeah, me too. And so when you're close to somebody, you can almost know what they are thinking before they even say anything. Number 2, what does Nelson Mandela's face represent? Well, if you're looking at his face there, you've got the rays of the sun. And obviously when the sun is there, there's a reflection on the water. And so Nelson Mandela's face represents the sun, the rays, and the reflection, if we had to replace his face with the sun. I hope you saw that. And then which real life event does this image portray? Well, let's think about it. You got the newspaper article, which I told you about, Mandela's last speech. You've got the Mandela era. And if it's the sun, and when the sun sets, it normally casts a reflection across the water. So possibly the event of when Nelson Mandela's time in government had come to an end. And it makes sense for that to be the reason, because you've got the man and the woman on the dock, and they're also quite sad because they're like, me too. So they're also feeling that loss now that Mandela is probably moving on and out of being a president, and so somebody else has got to come take his place. And what an awesome man he was. And so for him, for his last speech, for his era to be coming to an end is quite a sad moment. Because we did really love the man. And yes, since then he has passed away. So just it's a wonderful picture to remember him by. Let's take a look at number 2 picture. So this is a cartoon strip, and if you don't know Garfield, he's the orange cat, and then Odie is the dog in the picture. So it says there, Which visual details indicate that Garfield is at a distance in frame 3? So as you can see, we've got frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. So this is the frame you're looking at. How do we know that Garfield's at a distance? So there's 2 clues there that you can tell me about. Write down an adjective to describe Odie's facial expression in frame 6. And if we count, there's 3, 4, 5, 6. What kind of adjective would you use for his facial expression, the dog? And then how has the cartoonist illustrated that Odie's moving very quickly in the last frame, frame 7? And then what is quite funny about this cartoon? So just pause the video and answer the questions, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss it. Okay, so a visual detail that we can see to indicate that Garfield's at a distance. Well, the further things are away from the front of the screen, the smaller they are. And so that's the first one. Garfield's very small in comparison to Odie, who's closer to us. And so that's one of them. The second one is that the further things are away from you, the less detail you can see. So we can't really make out whether he's got eyes and a nose and whiskers because he's far away. So those are the 2. 1, the further away you are, the smaller you are, and the further away something is, the less detail we can see. How has the cartoonist illustrated that Odie's moving quickly in the frame? As you can see in the last frame. So there's a spray of water. There's also his ears. So instead of having 2 ears, you've now got them merging into one, almost like it's fanning from side to side. And then also his nose. There's like 3 noses and they link together, so that is another visual detail. And then the humor, well, obviously cats don't like to get wet, and so you can see Odie's in the rain, and he is in the rain again, and then suddenly it's clear, no rain, and here comes Garfield from a distance, coming closer, and here he is, and then suddenly there's no more rain, but Odie decides to shake himself after being so wet, and unfortunately Garfield gets wet anyway, despite his best intentions to avoid the rain. Sorry, I did realize we missed this one. Write down an adjective. So there's so many you could have done. I hope you chose good, interesting vocab, like he's ecstatic, he's excited, he's amazed. All right, let's move on. We now move on to advertising. I hope you enjoyed that first section. That's just looking at a picture and then discussing how you feel what you see and what the image is trying to convey to you. And let's move on to advertising, which is a tool to get people to buy things. And whether you like it or not, these tools are used because obviously companies want to sell stuff and they need customers like you and I. So there's a couple of tools that they use when they're advertising. They use association. So that's to transfer what you're feeling to a product, whether it's about having a friend or a puppy or something that connects you with the product. There's humor. It's always nice if something makes you smile or laugh. They use repetition, like repeating the same word or jingles or alliteration. If you think of advertising as in on the radio or on TV and you see the McDonald's ad, or years ago they used to have a spa advert. If you think about it, you could probably think about what their logo is to go with it based on what you could hear on TV. And then sense appeal, using your senses, so what you can see and almost what you could smell from looking at a picture of delicious food, for example. Sometimes your taste buds start to kick in and you can actually, your mouth just starts to water thinking of that very food that you would like to eat. Loaded words, so having more than one meaning. So for example, you'll see in one of the ones we look at later on, the word is used and you can use it in 2 different ways. And then sometimes there's a fear, like you don't want to have a stinky breath or stinky feet. And so they put that fear in. You don't want to be the one sitting in the room with a stinky breath. So use these peppermints. And then special deals, buy one, get one free. Who doesn't like a great deal? And then there's a call to action. So only one day or buy now. So let's try and look for those techniques. At the bottom of the screen, you can see those techniques that I've put in there for you. So let's take a look at, there's iPhone and then there's everything else. So even if we don't look at the bottom parts, which we can't really read. Let's just look at the top part. There's iPhone, and then there's everything else. So in other words, they sort of make you feel like if you don't have an iPhone, okay, well, it's fine because there is something else you can have, but iPhone's the way to go. So there's almost like that fear of not having the best. And in this advert, they're saying that iPhone is the best. Then share a Coke with a friend. I love this one. There's a bit of that association. It says get in touch with a good friend, an old friend, or maybe even a new friend. And so that sort of appeals to your nature of wanting to share something with somebody. Years back when they used these labels with your names, I think everybody wanted their name on a Coke bottle, and then to share it with a friend, you don't want to lose out. So there's also that fear of losing out, but also that association of sharing it with somebody that you care about. These two, take a look. I'm going to actually stop you there, and I'm going to ask you to pause the video. You look at them, decide. Sometimes there's more than one tool that they've used, and in this one, and then we'll discuss it when you come back. So pause, look at the bottom, and find out which tools they've used in these two adverts. Okay, and we are back. So buy one, get one free on Mondays. Okay, there's a few there. Buy one, get one free. Yes, it's your special deal. So you almost feel like, wow, it's actually like a bonus. But sometimes you're not actually going out to buy a burger. And so are you really buying one, getting one free? Not really if you weren't going to buy one in the first place, because now you're spending money that you weren't going to spend. But yeah, if you're going to get a burger, buy one, get one free is a great deal. And there's a little catch here where it says on Mondays, because there's now a call to action. You can only do it on a Monday. So if you miss out Tuesday to Sunday, you lose out on the deal. And then another one that they've used, so that's two. The third one they use is your sense appeal. So if you look already, as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking of those hot chips, possibly from Steers, that I could just actually have at this moment in time. And then this is one of my favorite adverts, keep off fried chicken, doctor's advice. And I don't know if you know, it was Nando's at the bottom here. So obviously they are, if you know Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, their chicken is fried while Nando's is grilled. So they're obviously using a bit of humor here to say it's doctor's orders. So it's healthy for you if you don't eat KFC, but if you eat Nando's. So yeah, quite cheeky, but nonetheless effective. And also the loaded words, or just the way they've used their words. So not necessarily loaded, but clever in the way they've used their figurative language or just their devices there. So keep off fried chicken. Inside there is the KFC part. Right, and then in this one, find the techniques. There's the McDonald's advert and one with Justin Bieber. So also pause the video, and then as soon as you unpause it, I'll be back to explain. Right, so I hope you found out with this one. There's some repetition. Big Beefy Bliss. It is alliteration, especially the first two words, not really the third one, because remember, alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds, and the sounds have got to be the same. So bill is not the same as big. So Big Beefy Bliss, it's a bit catchy. Also your senses, seeing those big burgers, just makes you want to go and get one, especially if you like McDonald's. If you don't, then perhaps it doesn't appeal to your senses. And then we've got Justin Bieber is proactive. So there's a bit of a loaded word there. One, we're also associating this product with somebody famous. And so sometimes we want to be like somebody famous or use what they're using. So they're sort of connecting us together. Second of all, Justin Bieber is proactive. So instead of him letting his skin just come out in pimples, he's being a little bit proactive and using a product that's going to prevent pimples from coming out on his skin. And so it's a play on words with the proactive, as in he's being proactive, but the actual product is also called proactive. Right, let's move on. We've got, I think this is one of our last slides. So if we look at these techniques again, I'm also going to ask you to pause, and then when you unpause, you'll find me back here to go through it. Right. Okay, so if we take a look at the first one from Woolies, save from 10% instantly on over 1,000 items every day with W rewards. So there's your special deal. Okay, and it's instant. So there's a loaded word. You sort of feel like, oh, if I go there now, I'm going to get those 10%. But the catch there is if you read the little words, items every day with your W reward, so your Woolies reward card. So you would have to go and get a Woolies reward card to obviously save the 10%. But still clever, it calls you to action, and obviously there are delicious pictures of food there, a roast chicken, avos, potatoes, appeals to your senses. And then we've got this picture of Mr. Price, what's not to love, and it's a play on words there. There's it's a bit loaded, so it's talking about the little girl, cute man, what's not to love about her. But also, if you went to Mr. Price, what's not to love there at that shop? There's so much you could get. So they're really appealing to two things, your love of cute things, but also the love of going there, and you will find something that you absolutely love. And then game, you always win at game. Also loaded words, always, which means there's whenever you go to game, there's going to be something that you want, and it's going to be a win for you. It's either going to be a good price, or it's going to be the item that you do want. Yeah, a way for them to advertise their store and what you can get there. So I hope you've learned quite a bit today. Before you go, let's just recap. So we've just spoken about visual literacy and just two little aspects of visual literacy. So in other words, images that you just look at and have to interpret, so we get questions based on them. And then adverts or movies where you have to look at it and see what technique that the advertiser is using. Please go back through this video if you want to, and then there are activities to complete. So once you've clicked on this video and you've closed it, you'll be back on this online lessons and activities for grade 7, and you will have the play lesson, which is where you went first. It obviously didn't say sentences, it said visual literacy, and then there will be worksheet 1 and worksheet 2, or just one worksheet. It depends on what we decided to assign. So I really hope you've enjoyed this lesson. If you have any questions about today's lesson, you can email me. The email is on the screen. It's grade7@worksheetcloud.com, and I will definitely respond to them as soon as I can. And so thanks again for watching grade 7s. As you know, I'll be here same time and I'll be in the same place. Bye everybody.